conduct trainings like this, I pick on people whose cameras are off. Especially EWDD, okay? Just because I need at least our service providers to see you, especially when we're telecommuting. There's no in-person meetings anymore, so the more that's important, they can attach a face with a name. Let me start my slide, okay? Excel. I did not send handouts to you guys before the meeting because I was working on the PowerPoint as as late as right before we started. So, but I promise I will send the handouts to you. Plus, I do prefer that you follow with me as I go through the slides so I can direct your attention where I want you to be paying attention to, right? So today we are going to have a training or meeting or discussion on the Californians for All Youth Workforce Development Grant financial reporting requirements. We're not going through the grant regulations because that will be a much bigger session, probably a couple of days sessions on those. So for this session, it will strictly be on the financial reporting requirements for this grant. In attendance today from the City of LA grants team, we have folks from the Mayor's Office of Economic Opportunity joining us. Zita, is Michelle here yet? Zita, do you want to say a few words?
Yeah, Michelle is on as well. Thanks, Catherine. I'll just really quickly, Zita Davis, the Executive Officer for Mayor's Office of Economic Opportunity, under the supervision of Deputy Mayor Brenda Shockley, that I believe most of you are familiar with. Our office is lead on the Californians for All grant with our partner department, EWDD, who is the grant administrator. And so I and Michelle are here to support with any programmatic questions that you may have today. So welcome, great to see you, and I'll let Michelle introduce herself.
Thank you, Zita. Hi, everyone. I see some familiar names and faces here, but for those of you who have not had the pleasure of meeting yet, my name is Michelle Gallarza. I'm the program specialist here with the Mayor's Office of Economic Opportunity, and as Zita mentioned, we work very closely on managing our Californians for All Youth Job Corps grant. And so I'm here as a resource for you all. Please reach out if you have any questions or need anything from our team, and it's great to meet you.
Thank you, Zita and Michelle. I mean, let me just say, how important do you feel, fiscal folks, that we have our good folks from the Mayor's Office joining us today? I mean, I don't want you to miss that point where that's how important fiscal folks are. I always say in my trainings, I don't care how successful the grant program is, it won't be successful without the fiscal folks. Okay, that's how important you are. You are an equal partner in the administration of those. So I hope you feel that way. I certainly did feel important when not an active employee. So thank you, Zita and Michelle, for joining us today. Let me go back to my PowerPoint. And today we also invited our program folks from the Workforce Development Division. Is Gerardo here yet?
The best you get is me. Hi, I'm Bryson, Senior Project Coordinator, right underneath Makita. Yeah, like I said, I know they're all in the office. I see them all running around, but I think they're going to probably pop in a little bit later. But I'll make sure I flag you when they show up.
Okay, thank you, Bryson. I did get a text from Tony who said we have to invite Bryson. I was actually the one who added your name, so thank you for joining us today. Once your teammates join, just call my attention, and if they want to say a few words, just let me know. Okay, or Kayum. Kayum is my co-host for today. And from the Financial Management Division, a good old FMD team. When I retired, I did have a replacement. I've had two, Rose and Emily, but unfortunately, they're no longer with the department. So now we're looking for my third replacement. The department has been really aggressive in trying to find that person. But right now, Mark Granado is our interim Financial Management Division Director. Mark here.
Hi, everybody. Very nice to meet all of you. Thank you so much, Catherine. I am new to the department. I've been with the city for about 22 years. I did arrive during the week of Thanksgiving. So upon my arrival, as Catherine mentioned, Emily did depart. And so I'm filling in the interim basis until we're able to find a new director to oversee the financial management division. I thank you all for your partnership. All of your contributions are very critical to the success of the program. So I just want to, let you know that we're all very grateful for it. Also, just as a reminder, we will be housed here in our Garland building for about 2 more weeks. And, we will have a new address for everybody, and we'll have communications be sent out to everyone. And we are moving to 444 Flower Street, South Flower Street, zip code 90071. And so that will be our new home for 1 year until we find a permanent spot for ourselves. So we are in a process of transitioning location, but we are always available via email, via phone. So please do not hesitate to reach out. If you ever need anything escalated from FMD, you know my name. Feel free to send me an email as well. All right. Nice to meet everybody.
Okay, thank you, Mark. And from FMD Grants Management, we have the financial reporting and invoice review teams. We've got a new grants management team. When I came back last year, I was here for 6 months, but after I left, we literally lost our grants management team, and we had one person who kept it afloat. So right now we have a new team that needs to be learning with you guys. So Kayam, can you introduce your team? Say hello so that they can see you.
Yeah, hi. I previously worked for FMD for invoice review. Currently, I'm working in the grants management team to ensuring that we're complying with rules and regulations as far as for our grantors required. And we're also here to provide any support we can to ensure that we're processing the payments and any guidance that you need in order to comply with those rules and regulation and provide trainings. I'll pass it to Menhani. You can go ahead and introduce yourself.
Say hi, guys.
Hi everyone, this is Medhani. I'm currently working with Grants Management, the Financial Reporting Division. So I'm here to help you, and nice to meet everyone. Thank you.
Isaacs.
Hi everyone, I'm Isaac Ching. I just joined the EWDD couple months, so I in the process to learn how to do the grant management.
Yes, Glenn Hino, Senior Accountant, Invoice Review. It's great to see many, many long-term friends here. Thank you for joining us, especially Mary and others also. It's great to see everyone. We also have Connie Garcia here with us today. She recently promoted from Accounts Payable. Connie, are you here?
Hi, I'm Connie Garcia under Invoice Review, and then nice to meet everybody.
Thank you, Connie. And we also have Jessica Taylor. She's our accountant. I believe she's been with us for about 6 months, and she's been doing a great job with us.
Yeah, hi everyone. I'm Jessica Taylor. I'm an accountant working with Glenn. So if you see my email, it's probably about trying to get you a payment. So, but anyway, it's nice to meet you all.
Who else
Thank
from
you,
your
Jessica.
team? Who else from your team then? That's
That's
it?
it. That's it. Yeah.
Okay, and then we all have the auditors.
Hi everyone, I'm Surendra. I think you've seen some of my emails. I look forward to continue working with you. Thanks.
Steve.
Today's his off day, so I don't think he's
Okay, Ruben.
Hello everyone, my name is Ruben Tertullian. I joined the FMD audit team starting last June. So it's a pleasure working with you, all of you. Thank you very much.
Okay. Is that it from FMD? Am I missing Eileen? Am I missing anybody?
Catherine,
Who's that?
would it be possible for you to produce a directory of FMD people for us, since there's so many new people, so that I can have names to harass?
Yes, and when I give you guys the handouts, it will have the names of the new folks.
Okay, thanks.
See, Mary's already putting me to work. I haven't even started the train. And of course, we have special guests today too, Edwin and Fred. Okay, Edwin, Fred, you want to say hi? People remember you, I'm sure.
Hello. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Fred Vocal. I'm so glad I can see my old friends, Mary, Tito, and Zita Davis. Yeah.
All right.
I'm back temporarily, and I'm not officially an employee of the city anymore. I'm a contractor. So, but I'm here to help. If you need anything, you know where to reach me. Okay.
Good to see you, Fred and Edwin.
Hi, everyone. Edwin Tionco, and I'm one of Mary's recyclables. So I retired in March, but Catherine asked me to join her. And,
All right. And of course, last but hopefully not the least, I'm Catherine Bondoc. I will be your presenter for today. For those of you who don't know me, I'm the former Director of Financial Management Division. I retired 2 years ago, but in that last 2 years, I've been coming out of retirement just to help the department keep it afloat while we deal with the different vacancies that we have. And of course, our special guest that I just introduced, Edwin Tiongo and Fred. Okay, so with that, we will start with the training. You guys ready? Yeah, so I hope you have coffees next to you. Try to keep yourself awake. I know it's after lunch. FMD, just monitor the chat. Raise your hands if you have any questions. I'd like to hear the questions that you have, so feel free to interrupt me. Okay, we have quite a few folks who were not able to attend today, so just know that this meeting is being recorded. So just a little bit of background on the grant. It is called the Californians for All Youth Workforce Development Grant. Okay, it is a federal grant. It's part of the $27 billion that the state received, Coronavirus State and Local Fiscal Recovery Fund. Federal grantor is the Department of Treasury. Our pass-through entities, the State of California Office of the Governor, OPR. I think that means Office of Planning and Research, California Volunteers. And I want to ask my good old folks here, who else is your pass-through entity? You guys better be able to answer this. Who else is your pass-through entity?
You.
Yeah, you guys.
The city of Los Angeles. Very good. And assistance listing, which used to be called CFDA, remember? Is 31027. So remember, this grant is a federal grant, which means it is subject to what?
Uniform guidance.
The uniform guidance to CFR 200. All of you, or at least the ones who have been with me, have been fully trained on the uniform guidance. That means it is subject to what? Those rules on allowability of costs, financial grants management, program and fiscal monitoring, risk assessments, cost allocation and indirect cost rates, procurement, and most important of all, the single audit. All those rules apply to this grant. Do not forget that. But this training is not a training on the regulations, but just keep in mind that those rules apply to this grant as well.
Sorry, Catherine, I just have a quick question because I don't understand.
Hey, Tito.
The California for All, is that what I know that is S2S?
I think you're talking about the student-to-student success.
Yes, but
yeah.
But let's say we have WIA Youth and Youth at Work. Is that part of the California for All, or?
The student-to-student is actually double funded. It's funded by California for All Youth and the general fund. So
and the general fund is
the city general fund. But I think we have separate contracts for that, as far as I know. So just keep that in. Okay. So because it's the Department of Treasury, it is also subject to CFR 35. That's the final rule for this grant. And because your city of LA is your pass-through entity, then you also have to follow, obviously, the city of LA contract revisions, the policies and procedures in the Workforce Development Annual Plan. And we will go through this directive that we issued a couple of months ago, which most of you ignored. Okay, because now we're in a bind because there was not compliance to that directive, and we'll go through that. Any questions so far? We're good. Okay. So the Californians for All Youth grant, the state allocated $149 million to California's 13 largest cities. Okay, these are the cities. What's the first thing that you see here?
LA.
Us. The city of LA received 54 million, 36% of that 149 million. So that tells you, because we have the largest city, we have the biggest youth population that we're trying to serve. You know, the low income, the victims of the pandemic and all that. That means we have the highest population to serve. That's 54 million. And I want to quote here what former Mayor Garcetti said when we got the 54 million. They were pretty excited about this. If you could just read it for a few seconds and let that empower you. Okay, empowered now? Right? So that's from our former mayor, Eric Garcetti. So that 54 million that the city of Los Angeles received, we're actually running that with participating departments. Obviously, Office of the Mayor is actually the grantee for the grant. If you look at the grant agreement, it's between the California volunteers and the mayor's office. EWDD will be the grant administrator. And then we're working with the Bureau of Public Works, Community Investment for Families, Recreation and Parks, and Youth Development for the other projects. So those are the city departments that are participating in this program. The grant budget. So obviously we have, how many programs do we have, Zita? These are the different projects and how the 54 million was allocated. You probably see now the ones that EWDD service providers are involved in. The biggest one is the second one, Angeleno Corps. It's 10.6 million. Clean LA, Early Childhood Education Advancement, I know is active now. We have some new programs that the hospitality training, LA Community College City Pathways is in partnership with Rec and Parks. River Rangers and the student-to-student success. Tito, here's your question. So that student-to-student success pilot program is funded by California for All and SYEP. So the budget that you see here actually reflects the reprogrammings that were recently implemented. I know Devin and Maritza from Public Works are here. We're reprogramming 2.3 million from the Clean LA program and LA Rice Youth Academy. And we increased, what did we increase? Angeleno Corps, student-to-student success, and we had a couple of new programs. So the budget that you see here is the revised budget. So before I move into fiscal, do you have any budget or program questions that you may want to ask the mayor's team and our program monitors before I dive into fiscal? No? No? You're excited for fiscal stuff? Okay. So let's talk about the state's financial reporting requirements. What's the process? What are the requirements? And what challenges are we having right now because we haven't been reimbursed in a while? So the state's financial reporting requirements, and obviously I had to talk about the requirements because that means the EWDD has to impose the same requirements on you guys, the city departments and our service providers. So when we got this grant, I think it was early 2022, I was retired already. This is their form, okay? This is their reporting form, fairly simple, right? Just those budget categories. So when you see fellows, they're actually talking about participant wages. So when they say fellow wages, they're referring to participant wages. Other fellow costs means participant fringe benefits. And wraparound services, they're actually referring to participant supportive services and your, meaning service providers, your operating costs, your admin and program operating costs, lumped under wraparound services. So I felt excited, right? It's a fairly simple form, budget, your expenses. Easy reporting, right? Or so I thought. The state's method of reimbursement is cost reimbursement only. This is where we kind of struggle when it's cost reimbursed. I get anxiety because I know it's difficult, especially for our nonprofit agencies who won't have that capital or funds to front the activities of the program. Unfortunately, even if this is a federal grant, there's actually no flexibility from the state to allow cash advances. And we've tried. Okay, Zita's here. We know we've had that conversations before where we were hoping the state would allow cash advances, but they didn't. Which is a surprise to me considering it's a federal grant. You know, for federal grants, they do allow cash advances as long as the organization can show that they have the cash management procedure in place to manage those cash advances. But we were unable to do that. So definitely cost reimbursement only for California for All. And they will pay down to the cents. They don't allow rounding offs. I'm saying this because I probably overpaid some of you already, or I rounded off, but I got reimbursed to the cent. So, but they actually told me that do not round off your numbers. Documentation requirements. When I see 100% supporting documentation, now I'm getting palpitations, right? Because you can imagine for a $54 million grant, and you guys have been allocated millions. There's hundreds of service providers. We have 5 city departments managing millions of dollars. The minute they ask for supporting documentation, you know that's a major task. Okay, so that's the requirement from the state, though. They did not bend on this with the city of LA being such a big organization. There is no bending on this requirement. This is what they're asking for right now. And they want to see the supporting documentation must match the amount that you're requesting for the current period only, which is now a problem for us. For EWDD service providers, as you know, our expenditure reports are on cumulative basis. Right? Are you guys with me? That's the problem we have right now, because the current period is not being separated in our expenditure report. They're holding the invoices. And so
Are you saying we cannot do a accrual basis?
no, we can. We can do accruals, but what they want to see is the current period being separated. So you will have to have a current period and a previous period to come up with a cumulative, and we'll go through that later. So that means our current expenditure report is not acceptable. For the other city departments, you are fine, and we'll go through that later, just because I created a separate template for you guys actually, so we're fine. The EWDD service providers cannot use the old expenditure report forms, and we said that in the directive. And we'll go through that later. I'm just going through what the state wants us to do. So far, they are focused on labor data. So now I'm getting heartburn, right? Because we're talking about labor data. That's hundreds of employees just for EWDD alone. Okay. For agencies, we have that schedule of personnel costs. But I'm thinking, for example, recreation and parks, I have pages and pages of labor that they're charging. So that's going to be an issue if they're focused on who's charging to their grant. They want to see participant wages and fringe benefits down to the participants. And they want to see supportive services. They actually highlighted that, the supportive services. The payment process, so far, it takes them a minimum of 8 weeks, but we haven't been paid for July, so that tells you it can extend 2 months of not getting reimbursements from the state. They have no online reporting and cash drawdown system, so everything is manual. So, and here's the problem too, they don't make partial payments. That means if they question Mary's invoice for 100,000 and they don't want to pay it, they're going to hold my entire 6 million invoice. And the only way to resolve that, from what I get from previous meetings with them, is that I have to pull back the invoice, take Mary's 100,000 out, and then resubmit. Okay, which is a surprise for me, again, because it's the state of California, but that's their rule. And they don't do our transfers, they actually issue checks. So the mailing time for those checks, and sometimes it will go to the mayor's office before it gets to us because they are the grantee on the agreement. That adds to the processing time. That adds to the 8 weeks for the mailing time for the checks. So the status of reimbursements billed by the city, January through June invoice, we were recently paid for that just in October. And as you know, the program has been running since July 2022. And right now, our July through October 2023 request for reimbursement is pending. And that's about 6.5 million that we're waiting for. Now, to address that cash flow issue, and thanks to the mayor's office for their help on this, the city is actually funding the program. We have about 18.4 million that the city general fund is covering. 14.5 million of that is what we call a reserve fund loan. And we have 2 departments that are actually fronting their activities, Recreation and Parks and Bureau of Public Works. So a total of 38.4 million that the city is front funding, just so we can continue to run this program while we're waiting to be reimbursed by the state. So now we talk about EWDD's financial requirements in response to what the state wants. Now we have EWDD's own financial reporting requirements to you guys. Okay. We issued FMD Directive 24001. Did you guys get this?
Yes.
Yes, we got it.
Yes.
Yes.
So now I'm hearing a few yes, but I'm thinking it probably didn't trickle down to the people who needed to see it. This directive was issued back in September 26, 2023. It was based on discussions that we had with the state. We gave instructions for the Google Drive. The Google Drive is where you should upload the financial reports, meaning the expenditure reports, the cash request, and the supporting documentation that the state wants. We did that in the Google Drive because it was just more effective to have the documentation there. That way it's already assembled by agency. by program, by period, rather than the email. So the purpose of that is to make it clear for all of us.
No.
Can somebody mute?
Oh,
For help,
sorry.
can you mute, please? Yeah. So that was the purpose for the Google Drive. The supporting documentation, we wanted to see participant wages, supporting documentation for fringe benefits, and supportive services, as I said in my previous slide. That Google Drive should look like this. You will probably go straight, for example, to your own agency, or you will see the programs that you were running, and we'll go through that later. So if there's anyone who doesn't know that you need to upload documentation in the Google Drive, please reach out to us because this should have been implemented back in October.
I'm sorry, I have a question. Catherine, this is Lauren speaking from Palos Niños.
Hi.
I reached out to the two individuals on the directive for clarification and assistance. Never heard back, and our program monitor, Darlene, was also looking into it for us because we had some questions about how far back we really need to start because it was asking for expenses, I think, dating back like a year.
Right,
And,
correct, yeah.
you know, like that's a huge task. So we never heard back, and so I just didn't move forward with that. So yeah.
FMD. Okay, I apologize for that. Hopefully I'll be able to address some of your questions during the training, but if not, let's talk later in the Q&A session. Okay. And then others as may be required. So far, the state is focused on participant wages, fringe benefits, supportive services, and labor data. But they can decide to say, no, I want to see a general ledger. I want to see your expenses. They haven't asked that, but be prepared if they do. Okay, and then in this directive, we also provided you the link where you could download the revised expenditure report that EWDD service providers should be using. And we'll go through that later. But if you click on that link, you guys should have been using this. And as of the latest reports that we received, no one's using it. No one's using it. It almost made me want to cry when we were preparing the reports because now, remember, the state wanted to see the current period separated and reports are cumulative, which is exactly why they're holding our payments.
So, Catherine, this is Alicia from the Housing Authority. We actually submitted our invoices on the old format. In the directive, I think finance received a little bit later or after the fact. So we will have to revise the invoices to the new template. Yes?
Yeah.
Okay.
And we'll talk about hopefully a little bit more when I go through that template. But that's the problem we have right now. That revised expenditure report will help us resolve the issue with the state. Okay. So that was the directive issued in September. When I send out the handouts to you guys for this training, I will attach this directive in case you didn't get it. But please read it. I wrote the directive, so I know I explain things well, but maybe not, right? So let me know. So the supporting documentation, what does the state want to see? For labor data, right now, we have been submitting the schedule of personnel that's attached to your expenditure reports, where we're listing the employee names, titles, salary rates, and the amounts that we're paying for the period. Right now, they haven't asked for timesheets. I'm getting anxiety that if they start asking for timesheets, that's a lot. I mean, even for EWDD alone, one pay period can be as many as, I don't know, 100 employees, right? And you're asking for timesheets for a month. That's 2 pay periods. Rec and Parks has pages and pages of interns, I think. And so far, I have been submitting just that schedule of personnel. But I'm saying pray that they don't ask for timesheets. But if they do, be ready.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. When I submitted the schedule of personnel from you guys, I just made a note, please, that's it. Please select some sample and I will gladly send you the timesheets, right? So far, I haven't heard back. So it looks like they're going to accept that information. But again, we should be ready if they start asking in future reports. For participant wages, you will have different reports, and I'll show you a sample of what we've been submitting so far. But what they want to see, participant names. Who are you paying? The date that they were paid, the pay period that were covered. Usually in a month, you'll have 2 pay periods. The hourly rate that you're paying. And again, this must not be below what's in the grant budget. Zita and I had a meeting a few days ago. Actually, the state requires us to follow the hourly rate that's actually in our grant agreement. So if we're paying below that, it will raise a red flag that we may have to revise our budget.
So Catherine,
yes.
I don't know if this is the appropriate time to ask this question, but when our rosters are produced, they always show the name, the date paid, and the pay period covered, but it isn't always the current pay period. For instance, if one of our participants turned in a timesheet late, it'll show that it was from a previous pay period, but it'll occur, the roster will reflect when it was actually paid. So is that a problem?
And you may want to attach probably a supplemental explanation for that, because remember, this is what the state wants to see. They want to see the participant report that actually match your participant expenditure that you're
yes.
For example, El Proyecto, I want to call out El Proyecto. They were actually very good with, in fact, they were the only one who submitted participant report. And when they had a discrepancy, they had a summary for me. Say, for example, this one, I have a discrepancy of $1,000 because, right?
Yeah.
I can attach that to the invoice to explain why there is a discrepancy. Will the state kick it back? I don't know yet.
Yeah.
Okay. But help me out with that. Make sure it ties up with what you're billing us for that.
Well, yeah, we will be billing exactly what the roster says. I'm just saying the roster may have some December wages on it as well as January wages.
No, you have to pull them out. If you can separate the ones that are only for that current period that you're billing us. And that's why I can't dictate what the format should be, because you guys have different systems.
Okay.
But I'll show a sample of what we've been able to provide so far.
Okay.
They want to see the number of hours, obviously the amount that you paid, because that's going to match your participant wages that you're reporting. And at least a description. Was it for attendance of a training class, work experience? Let me show an example. This is what we showed for Angeleno Corps. See how we call a stipend register report. This is for El Proyecto. I'm not showing any PPI, am I? Social Security? No, okay. It's for Angeleno Corps, for El Proyecto, and they see the names here of the participants, how much we paid, and what we're paying for. Work experience. Okay. And then, of course, the total should match what you're billing. They've accepted this. So something similar to this. Do you also see this, a PDF?
No PDF.
We don't see the PDF.
You don't see the PDF?
We're seeing the stipend report.
Now you see it, right? So this is an example from El Proyecto. They call it the labor allocation detail report. Let me just, no social security. So they have the participant names, how much they're paying for each. Okay. And their total actually match the billing. So very good, El Proyecto. So something like this is what they want to see. Questions?
Is it monthly?
The requirement for you guys is monthly. So yeah.
Do we have to do, can't we do it quarterly? I mean, what's the state requiring?
The state requirement is monthly, but they have been flexible about if you want to combine months, right? Just because they know the work is so much with the supporting documentation. So for example, for August through October, I combined it. But that means I'm combining 3 invoices from you. So we do have flexibility, but for internal grants management purposes, and Zita would agree with me here, we would like to see monthly reporting because we are monitoring those expenditures as we get close to the original end date of this program, which I think will be extended. But as we get close to that end date, we do want to monitor how we're doing on expenditures. And if you're only reporting quarterly, we're not going to catch, things that we may need to reprogram. If we're too slow here, maybe we want to reprogram here so that we don't lose the grant dollars. We actually expend them by the end date. So I think with the city, the requirement, we want to stick with monthly if we can. Okay. I got a question from, I think it was El Proyecto. For Angeleno Corps, the city was actually the one who process the stipends for the participants. We use the computer software systems portal to process those stipends. So for those agencies, for Angeleno Corps, just remember, these are your participants. So the funding for those stipends is included in your city contract. Okay.
So does that mean, but we're not paying the stipends, the city.
Yeah, but the funding for the stipends is coming from your contract.
Right.
FMD will handle the processing of payments to participants. As you know, we have been doing that. FMD handles the reporting of the participant stipend expenditures to the state. So we have been doing that. Okay, so don't worry, for Angeleno Corp service providers, your stipend expenditures are being reported. In fact, the sample stipend report that I showed you is from the system. Okay, did I answer this question? Okay.
Yes, Catherine, and we're asking the agencies not to report the stipends in your expenditure reports because we don't want to duplicate pay.
Will those payments be reflected in any of the, I guess, in the main report that we get on a monthly basis from Ben?
They should be reflected in the expenditure report because they are an expenditure against that contract. FMD just needs to remember that we are paying those separately through the CSS system. At some point, they need to know how much they're expending for participants. So it should be in that analysis report that IR issues. But my other question is, for the Angeleno Corps service providers, I know the participant data is entered by you guys. Don't you folks have access to the CSS system? No?
Oh, Mary, you're on mute, Mary.
Yeah, I don't, is the CSS system is on the platform, is that what you're referring to, Catherine?
Yeah.
I mean, we may have access to it. We never looked at it.
Is Makita here?
Or Bryson. Catherine, I know the supervisors of the interns have access because they have to approve their time.
Sheets, yes.
Right. But I'm not sure about fiscal. Bryson, I'll let you respond.
Okay.
Sorry, you read the question. I think one thing I was in between was like, so participant information is entered once again via application, and once again, timesheets are self-attested. It can be validated by the work site supervisor. That's usually what validates a timesheet.
And then, of course, FMD now comes in to process the stipends, right, through that payroll system. So I guess to answer the service provider's question, the fiscal folks from the service providers probably do not have access to it then.
I don't think we do.
Yeah.
No.
That sounds more like a programmatic part that they may have access to it, but not everybody on fiscal has access to them from the programmatic part.
Okay.
Exactly. It's more for like case management. That's usually going to be on the higher LA platform.
Okay. That sample report that I showed you is actually from that system. So
Yeah.
Glenn, we will need to coordinate with Linda. And Linda's very good with giving us that monthly report and how much stipends we're paying for each agency by
And
paper.
my question is, why do we need that information?
So that you know how much stipends they're receiving, and it's actually an expenditure against your contract, Mary.
But it's not really an expenditure against our contract because we don't manage it.
You don't manage the fiscal part of it, but they are your participants.
But I have a question to that. I'm sorry to butt in, Mary, but I have a question. So I agree with her because if we externally get audited by our auditors, so we have like Price, whatever Waterhouse, that auditor come in and looks at our records, and they say, oh, you paid a stipend because you will give us that information, and we should be putting that in our accounting software, so we show that we're not so over or underspent on a contract. However, when we get audited by our external auditor and they say, hey, can you paid so-and-so, Mary Smith, $1,000 for the stipend, they could ask us for that backup and we may not have it. So how do we address that to you guys so we don't have to spend a lot of time? We can't just say, oh, the city paid for it, la 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 la, and call it a day, because they probably won't like that answer.
The other thing is, when in our original budget, and I think even the budget that I did for this year, you didn't give us enough in our contract to cover the total stipend. And when I inquired about that, the response was, don't worry about it. The city's paying for it, you know?
We may have to have a separate conversations for Angeleno Corps.
Yeah.
I saw Makita join, but FMD's part here is we're paying the payroll that's submitted to us. We can provide the basis for that stipend on what's available in the system. So that probably can be coordinated with us. But Makita, we probably have to talk about the agency's fiscal folks being able to generate some kind of report. I don't know. And I don't want to tie up the discussion for those agencies that are not receiving Angeleno Corp. So if we want to have a separate conversation after, Makita, can you help me with the question on the CSS system, please? I mean, I don't have a problem with agencies reaching out to FMD when their authors ask for documentation, but that's a lot of participants. So I'm thinking agencies should probably have access, but we can talk about that later so that we don't tie up the training for those who don't have Angeleno Corps. Okay, so Angeleno Corps agencies, can you stick around after, if you can? Okay. Thank you guys for those questions. I was kind of expecting, and that's why I added that slide on the Angeleno Corps. I know there were questions on that one. For fringe benefits, you know this, the usual FICA, workers' comp, SDI, and health benefits. Participant supportive services, they want to see a report that contains the type of supportive services. The contact person that we have is actually really picky about this. I want to see those gas cards, gift cards is what it said. For the city departments, I know the template that I had for them forces them to list the supportive services they're paying, right? So for the city departments, we have that information. But as you know, for the EWDD service providers, that expenditure report, that supportive services is just one line item called supportive services. So now you have to provide documentation on what makes up that supportive services line item. And right now, that's all they are asking. The types of supportive services, the amount. So far, they are not asking for information down to the participant. So what do? You pray that they don't. Okay. So right now, they have not asked, because I can just imagine, right, if we need to list the participants and what type of supportive services they're getting. Okay.
So, Catherine, you're going to have to do the praying for me because I'm not a religious person. So
You notice I put that in red. I put that in bold. Pray with me, please. Well, I'm retiring. I don't have to pray. It's you guys who will actually be involved. If the state asks for that, you will have to provide. Okay.
then you'll have to pray for me.
Yeah, one motto I have in grants management, I always try to follow what the grantors require. I tell the FMD staff when I'm dealing with a grantor, I have a totally different demeanor than when I'm dealing with the EWDD service providers, right? Because we have to follow what they need. Otherwise, they put us on sanction. We're not able to draw down funds. We can't pay you. So the domino effect of that can be really serious. So pray. Okay, but if they do ask, be prepared to provide that documentation.
Catherine, question. This is RAP. You said for when it comes to reporting Schedule A and B, correct? That's labor and participant wages. What we've been submitting, just to make sure that's what I understood.
Yeah, I'll explain later why the city departments, the form that we have is fine for now. Thank God we revised that template early on. I think I had a bad feeling. It will haunt me later, and that's why. But the problem right now is with the service providers because they actually don't have that Schedule B in their templates, Connie. Okay, so the Google Drive, okay, that's where you will be uploading the reports and the documentation. Have you guys tried to access it? The city departments have, and they have been very good, but service providers, not all of you. El Proyecto has. I think UCLA in the beginning, and then I didn't see it anymore. Right, but let me explain the folders. This were explained in the directive, but let me go through that again because I think that was a source of confusion for many.
Catherine, there's a few chats. Do you want to go over those now?
Yeah, are there questions?
Yeah. LA Rise Program Monitor, many of our providers did not receive the Google link. Can you please share the link or where to find it?
Yes, we will.
Glenn, I'm already looking into that with her.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Oh, you're chatting. Okay.
Yeah.
We will.
Okay.
I just privately chatted her. That's fine.
Any other questions for me on the chat? All right. So the Google Drive, you will see folder number 1. What that is asking is, we need to upload the documentation to support the report that we submitted to the state as of June 2023. Okay. For that folder, please listen carefully. Okay. For that folder number 1, we will need to support the cumulative expenditures through June 30, 2023, per my report, okay? This is the one time where the state actually agreed, okay, your cumulative supporting documentation is fine. Because I was kind of arguing, well, I don't even know I was submitted in December 2022 to come up with the current period of January 23 to June. So I insisted, can you at least accept the documentation cumulative as of June so you can pay us for that fiscal year? And they agreed. So that's what folder number 1 is for.
Catherine,
And don't worry, I will go through a folder. That way you guys are not confused when you see your folders. I'm just kind of explaining why are there folders 1 and 2 and 3. Fortunately, for the report that we submitted for June, the state has paid us. Okay, so that means they accepted the documentation that we submitted so far. Folder number 2 is where we need documentation for the report that we submitted for July. But in this case, they only want documentation that supports the month of July that we're reporting. This report includes expenditure reports that we received from everybody as of August 10. Okay, so ideally, as of August 10, what invoice should I have from you guys? We should have July report by then. But, you know, some of you were late. Some of them, I only had May, right? I only had April. Okay, but the report for July would include all billings from you guys that we have on hand as of August 10, 2023. And folder number 3 is for supporting documentation for August through October. This is where I combined, because we were running behind on the reporting, the state agreed, okay, go ahead and combine your August through October.
Okay.
So that means they wanted to see the documentation for that 3-month period that I was reporting. So for that report, we were able to capture all expenditure reports received at FMD as of November 10. And those could be different months. And then the subsequent folders will just be typically monthly from that point on. Let me go through an example. I'm going to use El Proyecto, okay? El Proyecto for their S2S contract. So this is the Google Drive. For El Proyecto, you will see this folder when you go to it. Do you see it?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so El Proyecto has multiple programs. In this example, we want to see student-to-student success. Let's look at their North Valley contract, 141819. Now you see all these different folders, right? So for folder number 1, El Proyecto, I'm asking you to upload your documentation from inception, meaning July 2022 to May 2023. Okay. And I'm asking you that because when we reported our June report, I only had your May invoice. And that's why we included it here already so that you know what you need to upload. So if I go to that folder, I actually included a copy of your May invoice there so that you know what number you need to support. In this case, I need your supporting documentation for participant wages for $68,000 and fringe benefits of $7,500. So if I go back to my slide, that's what we're asking you. So that folder number 1 means El Proyecto. I need to see your supporting documentation that would support your May 2023 expenditure report. Folder number 2, okay, as you can see here, we named it June and July because that means when we reported for our July invoices, I had your 2 invoices. That's when we included your June and July. So for folder number 2, El Proyecto, I'm asking you, please upload your supporting documentation for the 2-month period, June and July only, okay? Not cumulative, but the total for those 2 months. for folder number 3. Now you tell me, what do I need to see in folder number 3?
Supporting documents.
For what?
August to September.
Yes. Okay. So for folder number 3, I'm asking you to give me your supporting documentation for August through September, because when we reported for October to the state, I had those 2 invoices from you.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's what we want to see. And if you're uploading them in the right folder, it already matches the report that we submitted. And it makes it easier for us to assemble that. And remember, we're assembling thousands of pages. And here I am trying to cross-reference so that the state can actually find your supporting documentation. Just imagine the work that entails. That's the purpose of the Google Drive, because it helps us sort through the hundreds of pages of documentation that we're supposed to be receiving from everybody.
Right. So some of our agencies probably don't have the capacity to email volume. Right.
And email, it gets too hard. I mean, this is one of the limitations where currently the department doesn't have a grants management system. Hopefully in the future we will have that. But right now we don't have a platform where you guys can submit those invoices. Right now it's email. And if you're submitting your reports there and the documentation there, imagine the chaotic assembly of that documentation if you're using that email. And that's why, at least for this one, until we have a grants management system, we resorted to the Google Drive. That way you have your own individual folders for your agencies, for your individual programs, and then folders that we need you to upload documentation to, already organized. And maybe for later on, we will actually give the state access. So if, for example, the state wants to see El Proyecto, okay, I will give them access to folder number 2. Then it gets a little bit more organized for all of us. And if we can get faster reimbursement from the state, the faster that we can reimburse you. So I really wanted to go through this folder because I know that must have been confusing, especially if you didn't hear back when you were trying to ask questions. So I do apologize for that. But hopefully this clears it. Did I lose anyone? Oh, quiet means good, right? Yeah. Mary, okay?
Yeah, just a quick question on the chat from Lauren.
Uh-huh.
She asked that, what are the quarter end dates for CA for all? That's one of the questions. The second question is, do they coincide with the calendar quarters?
I mean, I would say September, December, March, and June. But I hope you're not asking because you're planning to submit quarterly reports, because we still do want them monthly. Okay.
And next question she asked is that, do we need to see it? You need to see it even though the city has been reimbursed for the last fiscal year for the quarterly report or the August and September.
And very good question. I was actually going to get to that. Right now, please prioritize the documentation for folders number 2 and forward. Only because, as that question was alluding to, for folder number 1, the state already reimbursed us. So you can do the uploading of the documentation later. That way it's available when the state asks for it. They did pay us only because our general manager and Zita actually helped us work with the state so that they could at least pay us for June, even if the cumulative documentation was not sufficient for them, right? But later on, they could go back and ask. So you can upload the documentation for folder number 1 later. That way you can prioritize folders number 2 moving forward, but please make sure you go back and upload in folder number 1 when you can.
Okay, Catherine.
Yeah.
This is Mary again asking a dumb question, but I want to make sure I'm perfectly clear on this.
Okay.
So, going forward, we continue to submit our regular invoices to the city, and that's what you will pay us on. And then, in addition to that, we submit this this documentation that you're describing here for the state. Is that correct?
You're submitting them at the same time, Mary.
Yes, I understand that, but it's two separate sets of documents, right? The invoice to you, the normal invoice is cumulative. Yes. This is monthly, right?
Yeah, because when we submit to the state, For the UCLA line item, for example, I will submit your expenditure report plus the documentation that you uploaded in the Google Drive. So those reports they're kind of like the summary for the documentation. So yes, those are still being submitted. Yeah. So as far as I'm concerned, Mary, that's one package, your expenditure report and the documentation that we just discussed. That entire package is being attached to our report to state, being attached and cross-referenced so that the state can find it.
Okay, so we're not doing cumulative anymore. Is it? I haven't looked at the new cash request.
And we will go through the next form, the revised template.
Okay, all right.
Yeah.
Let me shut up.
Just remember what the state wants. They want to be able to tie up your number and the documentation.
Oh yeah, I get that.
No flexibility there at all. They gave us a one-time accommodation, but that's it. Okay. So
Okay.
I want to make sure everybody's on the same page on
And,
that.
and you want the pennies, rounding.
Yes,
right?
I actually almost fell off my chair. Please, Catherine, don't round off. We paid to I'm like, well, and then I said, but that means I overpaid my agency. So what?
Yeah, well, yeah. I'm keeping the overpayment. I'm keeping that $1.50.
But yeah.
Cesar from el proyecto.
Hi.
Do you have access to my S2S drive because the documents are already in? The one that you were asking for the pay period prior to for cap holder one is already in, Catherine.
If you did that, that's fine. But we do have all the rest of the agencies who have not done it. So that's why I called out El Proyecto very good, because I know El Proyecto complied with the directive. Yeah. So
good job, Cesar. Thank you very much.
Yeah. And I know some of you tried, but I think they had questions that were not answered. And that's why I want to bring all those questions today so that we all walk away knowing what to do. Okay. And then I can go back to retirement. Okay, come on, question. I keep saying that, I know. Carson, have a...
Ricardo had a question as well.
Okay, so Carson first.
Okay.
Thank you. So to piggyback on Mary's question, the way I understood her question to be, are we still emailing EWDD and uploading? So that's my question. Are we emailing EWDD the old invoice or the new invoice? Or are we not emailing EWD and just doing the upload on the drive?
Glenn, I want to say just do the upload, but I think for that email, you do want all the reports there for now, right? Because it's the only mechanism we have for invoice submission.
They should upload the documents in the Google Drive.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
still continue to send the cash request expenditure report and schedule personnel to our central email.
And maybe
And then you don't.
and maybe the support and documentation in the Google Drive, because that can be a lot.
Yeah, you don't have to email the supporting documentation to the central email, just the Google Drive.
What are you paying us off of? What we submit to you through email, right?
On the central email,
Guys,
your
hold
cash
on,
request.
Okay. The Google, okay, guys, like what I said in the slide, the Google Drive must have the cash request, expenditure report, and the supporting schedules and the supporting documentation, because I don't want to have to go through the email. That email address for financial reports, you can just send the expenditure report and cash request there without the supporting documentation, because it can be a lot via email, I understand. Yeah.
Mary, it also to help you, why is that we are using two places to allocate? We share the links and a lot of the documents in the Google Drive. We directly provide them to the state to review those documents to ensure that all of them get transferred. As you know, due to the volume, we can't submit them in email. So sharing these links that we provide to you, we share also this link with the state, and it helps them to have access to those documents immediately when we request for funding to be reimbursed to all the agencies.
Okay, so the new cash request, I assume, is not cumulative then.
Okay, I'm gonna go through that next. Not the cash request. The important thing for the state report is the expenditure report, guys, because that's the detail. So
it's not cumulative.
That's the schedule that we changed. So we're gonna go through that next. Okay.
Okay. So again, it's Mary asking stupid question. So are WIOA And all of our other contracts that are not California for All, we continue our old regular cumulative reports using the old template,
The old
right?
one. Yeah, the old one. And the
Okay.
reason why when this grant started,
Yeah.
the reason why we did not change the expenditure report was because we thought, okay, whatever information the state is asking, it's already on that expenditure report. We have a
Right.
separate section for participant wages.
Yeah.
But I didn't know at the time that they want the current portion separate. The good thing is for the city departments, we did issue a new template because they're new. They've never dealt with us. So it was easy for me. Okay, can you please start using this template? But we didn't change it for the EWDD service providers until we have this problem. So for the city departments, we're fine so far. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now let's go through that expenditure report template.
But just to be clear, Catherine, we would want them to submit the cash request expenditure report, schedule personnel through the central email. So continue to do that, Mary.
Continue to do that. Yeah, continue to do that. So now let's go through the expenditure report template. This is for EWDD service providers, not for city departments, because again, the city departments are fine. This is revised, okay? So in the directive, we actually gave you the link where you can download that document. But it's the same basic format, meaning the same cost categories, the same supporting schedules. We have the schedule of personnel, right? We have the cash request. We just did a new column to show current expenditures. So the columns you will see are this, but let me show you. You see this, right? So this is the revised template. So see, it's the same. We just changed this. See how we're separating your cumulative minus your previously reported to actually separate your current period. That's the change. That the revised template simply adds that column. Again, the supporting documentation should match current period expenditures. It should match that. Okay. So not much change there. You're going to be doing the same thing that you did. You just have to be mindful about separating what's for previous period and what's for the current to come up with the cumulative. So this shouldn't be much of a change for you guys. Yeah. So that's the expenditure report template. Please start using it. It was supposed to be used starting October, but no one has used it. Now, for participating city departments, our good city departments, they have the new template that we provided to them last year. So they have been using that. And I want to acknowledge how good they've been. They've actually all been reporting on time. For the city departments, the template already has the summary. So easy for me. I just need to pick this up from your reports, and it already matches what I need to report to the state. And then, of course, we did ask you to provide the details. You have the expenditure report, Schedule A for admin, supportive services, and operating costs, and the Schedule B for your participant wages. So city departments, you are good to go as long as the supporting documentation match the current period expenditures. And I do recommend that you use the same template if you have service providers for your projects. I thought we would finish an hour, but that's like an hour and 30 minutes. Any questions?
This is Alicia from the Housing Authority. I do have a couple of questions.
Sure.
So we have a couple of contracts that do have the California for All funding. And I'm just wondering, one of the contracts is actually a blend of different funding sources. And it includes California for All, but in the presentation today, you mentioned that this is federally funded, which is not apparent in the contract. Is there any way to improve on that so that, and in fact, in the second contract, I don't think it's listed there either.
Okay, wait, that's a problem.
Yeah.
The city contract for our program folks, the city contract should mention that it's a federal grant, and it actually should also have that assistance listing number there. And that's because most of our agencies are exceeding that 750,000 threshold for single audit. That means this grant has to be part of the population that their single auditors will audit when they comply with the single audit of the uniform guidance.
Got it.
So, and one of the things that auditors usually look for is they want to see the contract mention that it's a federal grant, because then it's subject to federal regulations. So,
and it's a problem for us too, because obviously we didn't set it up correctly.
Yeah, so that means you guys will have to prepare your schedule of expenditure of federal awards as part of the SEFA. It may not be considered as a major program in your single audit, but it has to be part of the population that the auditors will potentially review, okay, because it's a federal grant. Now, on the EWDD side, Makira, if that's not in the contract, we need to fix that. Because if we get audited on the California for All, and they see that our contracts don't state that, that's a potential issue.
Yeah, and that for the university, we have a different way of reporting labor. We use effort reports, and so we need to know what that CFD number is, or whatever they're calling it.
Yeah, and remember, this might not be a one-time report. This grant is supposed to be ending in May, and Zita can correct me, probably going to be extended. We will potentially get a second round. So meaning whoever's going to get additional funding will be dealing with this contract more than one time with this funding. So it's important that you have it set up so that you actually comply with those federal requirements related to single audit. So very good question. Thank you.
And then Catherine, if I could just add, just to clarify what Catherine said. Yes, we have been approved. The city has been approved for a no-cost extension for the existing funding that we're all talking about. And so instead of the contract ending May 1, 2024, it will end September 30th, 2024. And so the official communication will come through EWDD, but we were just recently notified. And so we've just been sharing the information with everyone.
Yeah, we plan to just do contract amendments to extend the term from May to September. So that's going to be forthcoming. We still have a couple of contracts we need to get out that should already have gone. So we'll have to wait until after those go to be able to do the extensions for all of the CFA contracts.
We're actually going through the single audit right now, and I'm pretty sure California for All is considered a major program by the city auditors.
Hi, Catherine. This is Anthony Rapaza from CRCD. I entered the meeting late, but anyway, just to recap and to make clear, what you're asking us to do is for those agencies that did not provide the original support to go back onto these Google Drive links and retroactively provide supporting documentation for particular costs. Correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Prioritize folder numbers 2 and 3 because that's pending at the state right now. And then moving forward, just keep that up. And then go back to folder number 1 because that has already been paid, but the state can actually look at it anytime that they want. So, you know, I don't want them, well, we paid you for this. How come I don't see documentation for UCLA? They might just have that question, and I don't want that. So once you upload the documentations for folders 2 and 3, please go back to folder number 1. That's the big one, right? Because it's from inception.
Great. Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. And this meeting is being recorded for the future replay, correct?
Yes. And we will share the link with you guys. Just remember, this has to be a team effort because otherwise we're not going to be reimbursed by the state. And remember, if they have a question on a line item for our invoice, they're going to withhold the entire invoice, meaning all of you don't get paid if one item is a question. Okay, I wish that practice will change, but that's how they do it. So I actually did not know that until I met with them last year, where I said, okay, just withhold that portion and then pay us for the rest. And I said, no, we don't do partial payments. I almost fell off my chair, but you know, because I know for EWDD, we can do that. We could withhold certain amounts and release the rest, but not this grantor. I have never dealt with this state agency. So now I'm learning it's different from the grantors that we've been dealing with so far, or at least for me.
Catherine, there are a few.
And this really emphasizes the fact that we're all pass-through entities and we're all subject to the same regulations. So if it applies to the city, it applies to all of us as recipients because it's taxpayer money. Got it. Thank you.
Correct. It's a federal grant. Usually for federal grant, the requirement is easier, right? Because they're at that level. But remember, the pass-through entities can always decide to be more restrictive with requirements. And this is what the state did. And because they are a pass-through entity, now we have to implement those more restrictive requirements with you guys. And you should do the same with your contractors if you have service providers, if you're subcontracting our program. Okay.
Thank you for clarifying. Thank you.
Sure. Any more?
Captain, there are a few questions on the chat.
Okay.
From you, Lin. How do we account for the stipends paid by the city in our SEFA? She's referring to the Angeleno.
You will have to have that information from us. It's information that we should be providing in the analysis worksheet when you guys report back to the agencies, because we do have that number. We know exactly how much we're paying for every agency.
We have that number, but the number is also in the platform. So any agency that has access to the higher lay platform can look at the payment records and see which youth are paid and how much they were paid. So that's something that they can have access to as well at the agency level, as long as they have access to our platform and they have access to that particular program. So if you have Angeleno Corps, and I think Mark also put it in the chat, if you have Angeleno Corps and you're an agency that's running that program and we're paying, you can go into the platform and look up the reports and look for the payment logs, and you'll be able to see that information as well.
So Makita, can you give us, can Mark or you send out a little blurb on how to do that for us dumb people? Thank you.
Yeah, a number of people have asked me about that, Makita, because the fiscal folks are, of course, concerned about the reporting, the single audit. They need to know.
Yes, I see that. Yeah, there's accessibility, and the service leads for Angeleno Corps also have access to it as well.
Okay. Then that actually answered the other questions earlier too. Anyone else?
The concern is they may need to record the EWDD paid expenditures into their GL with associated revenues. And the current concern is about their annual audit, which likely include their scope auditing EWDD. The auditor may go as far as considering EWDD a subcontractor rather than a contractor.
So what's the question? Therefore, our annual auditor will likely include in their scope auditing EWDD. They can work with us if they need information that we can provide. So I certainly don't have a problem with that. But you can probably explain the arrangement that we have with the CSS platform, especially if you guys are going to be you could probably get what you need now rather than go through us as per Makita. Yeah.
And I believe there's language in the Angeleno Corps contract that says that the payments will be handled by EWDD, and that's a contract that we have with all of our agencies for that program in particular.
Do you see that expanding, Makita, to other programs as well, or just Angeleno Corps for now?
I'm looking at Zeta, but I'm not going to say anything.
Okay.
Yes, but I'll jump in and say the future is automated, everybody. So we are trying to get to a place where young people are paid on the same kind of timeline at the same time, and trying to also increase efficiencies, not only for FMD, right, our fiscal engine, but also for the fiscal engine at each of your agencies as well. And so the department and the mayor's office are looking into ways that we can make that process smoother, easier for everyone, but still support kind of the documentation that one would need through an auditing process as well. So, yes.
Hi, Catherine. I'm Anna from LSD. So I have a question for the S2S, Student-to-Student Success Program. So we do have one grant. It's funded by the General Fund. So it is related to this, the California for All Youth grants, or is part of this grants too?
I think this is coming from the confusion we have with the contracts, Makita.
Yeah.
It's a California for all, and I think they see City General Fund as the funding source. It's causing confusion even for FMD. Do you want to take that question, Makita?
Yes, I have a similar question from Housing Authority.
I think so. I was listening to that commentary regarding the federal funding and the city funding. The issue was initially we in the department and the mayor's office looked at California for All and compared it to its similar programming like our general fund. And so the initial contract template, it basically showed that because that's what we utilize as a boilerplate for the contract because that's where it was more closely aligned. It wasn't as aligned to our WIOA, so we didn't use that one. But if it is federal and we do have the number and we have that information, when we do our amendment to update the term, we can also change the information around the funding so that it aligns more closely with what you need.
And that's critical, Makila, even for FMD, that funding source information has to be correct because it tells us what funds to encumber, right? So that needs to be addressed soon, not just for our agencies, but even for FMD.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay.
So in terms of that, or in line with that question, so we also had a problem with, or an issue with our city general award for 22-23. And we received the funding towards the end, after we submitted the closeout. And so we received additional funding, and recently it was clarified that it was California for All. Our understanding was that those funds were.
Okay, who's going to take that question, Makita?
I didn't hear the question.
Okay, so we received. So we submitted our closeout for 22-23 program year for City General Fund, and then after we submitted the closeout, we received a contract amendment for that same performance period. We thought it was the same funding source because the City Link, including, has the contract amendment and it only lists City General Fund, right? But later, I guess there was a revision to the contract amendment, which breaks out that second contract amendment as California for All funds. So how do we rectify the closeout for 22-23?
I think this was when we did not have enough general fund, but we had savings for California for All, and it was the end of last year. And I think that's when we provided higherly dollars with California for All, or higherly program funding with California for All dollars. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes, but it wasn't clear in the initial contract amendment that was released that it was California for All funds. So our closeout is still pending for that period.
Okay, and what program was this for again?
City General Fund?
CDGF, yeah. Yeah, I believe this, so we did a board report last year towards the end because we weren't provided with enough City General Fund. And so we tried to stem that gap by using some of the savings from California for All. And so in the board report, it is clear that we took California for All dollars and moved it into a City General Fund. But when we did the extension, it only lists that as the funding source, maybe in the front portion of that contract, but on the summary page, it still says General Fund. Is that what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So Catherine, with that situation, because we did use CFA funding, are you thinking that they should report the CFA and do the backup documentation that you're asking for?
The documentation is only for CFA. So I guess there has to be a clear breakdown on which one is SYVP and which one is CFA. That impacts not only the reporting, their closeout, the audit, and
right
to the state. So that has to be clear.
And then also we're going through year end.
Yeah. So if we need to have like a bulletin or a directive.
My question then is, if you were closing out your general fund, then everything after the closeout, would that be your California for All dollars? So then that would be where you would change the reporting.
Right, that would be where we would change our reporting. But are there different enrollment requirements?
No, no, it's the same because we in essence ran out of money for City GF, and because we had savings, and I didn't want to leave some agencies high and dry when we had promised them dollars for slots, we utilized California for All to cover it. And so from that point on, when you have your closeout and the City General Fund dollars are done, then the remaining slots that you have that were under California for All, those are the funds that you're reporting on. But we didn't change any eligibility or requirements. We kept it as general fund to make it easier for you all. So that contract, and that's why the language doesn't necessarily read as clearly, because nothing changed except for the funding source.
I know, but the funding breakdown has to be there because I mean,
The funding is there. It's listed as California for All, but like I said, the language in the contract doesn't really denote that because it's still being handled as CDGF because we just use that money to cover.
Okay.
So then I still have to submit a separate budget and
and
the balance. Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Two
But
separate
the requirements are still the same.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, that it's really important in all of our contracts that initially we know whether it's federal funding or not, because that's how internally we set up our accounts, you know.
Right.
I just have one more question with as far as for you guys receiving the documentation. So when we upload the documents to the Google Drive, are you guys expecting us to upload a PDF that is signed or not?
It's easier for reporting purposes that you have a PDF because the documentation we're sending, they're all PDFs.
So we're going to download the new expenditure report, which I have been using since October, but I was having trouble uploading it to the Google Docs. So I was still sending it to EWDD, the new expenditure report and cash request.
Glenn, correct me if I'm wrong. We do want the PDF. That's what's signed, right? It would have the proper signature.
It would have the
form.
signature.
We also use the Excel just in case the PDF is hard to read, because sometimes that's an issue. But when we report to the state, obviously what we're submitting will be the PDF because it's one big PDF package. Yeah.
Okay. So it still needs to be signed, essentially.
Yeah. Because remember, as I said earlier, when I submit the documentation to the state, well, not me anymore, but when we submit the documentation to the state, that expenditure report, that duly signed expenditure report, is like the summary. And we want that authorized signatory there. And then we attach the supporting documentation for participants, supportive services. Those can be internal reports in PDF.
Okay.
Right?
Okay.
I think for now, the state just wants to see the breakdown of what you're doing. So far, they haven't asked for copies of invoices, copies of receipts, that would back up your numbers. So again, what do you do? So far, they haven't asked for those. What do you do?
Pray.
You pray. Because once they start asking, okay, I want to see the receipts for your supportive services, for those gift cards. Oh, now we start praying the rosary. We're in trouble, right? So right now, submitting an internal report has been acceptable, but who knows, right? So good question. And I guess as we hear from them, they're reviewing our July invoice for now. When we met with them back in December, they haven't even seen our August through October. So as they review, we get questions. But then again, that takes time. So this is going to be a learning process. I shared with you for now what we learned from meeting with them, but there may be additional requirements later as they review the invoices that we have pending with them so far. So bear with us on that one. FMD will let you know that there has to be another meeting like this. They will schedule one. Any other questions? I see the chat. Yeah, it's so critical that we resolve that. I know I said that the city fronted the funds. Remember, the state has reimbursed us through June, but we're able to pay you so far through August, I think, and we're starting to process the rest of them now. But if we don't get reimbursed by the state, that's going to run out on us, right? And at some point, we're not going to have funds to actually release. So we need to resolve the issue with the state. So help us out on that one. And even the ones that they are okay to process, it takes them at least 2 months to reimburse us. So that alone, even when everything is okay, it takes a little bit longer. So I need you guys to be aware of that. And that's why it has been so challenging with this grant, because of that turnaround as we try to work things out with the grantor. But I think as we iron this out and when everybody starts complying with the directive, we have the documentation that we need to report, I think it would be smoother moving forward once we start working together and complying. Yeah. So that way I get the news if I'm retired and I ask Mary how she's doing with the California for all. Oh, we're good now. We're being paid. Then I'm at peace during my retirement, right? And just to let you know, I've been back 6 months for the second time Okay, the second thing, just to help the FMD staff, keep them afloat as we struggle with the vacancies and now a vacancy with my position, but I am heading out again. I'm saying goodbye again for the third time. So I'm hoping to walk away, or at least being involved with daily operations at the end of next week, but I should be available if there's any questions or need for my guidance. I'll make myself available. But hopefully we will have an FMD director soon. I want to thank Mark for stepping in, but the department's goal is to find my replacement. This should be the third one now, hopefully soon. So I can go on my adventures. Okay, any other question?
No, Catherine, are we wrapping up already?
Yes, unless there are.
Carolyn was going to join us in a few minutes.
Okay, our general manager wants to say hi. Go ahead, Carolyn.
Hello, everybody. It's great to see you. I'm sorry I'm late to the party. And really, my purpose of saying a few words is to just give you my gratitude. Gratitude for the work that you've done, gratitude for your patience as we work through the state requirements, as we work through the challenges of invoicing. Your work is so valuable to the city, to the mayor's office. And I want to make sure that everyone here understands that if you're having challenges, you can email me directly. And my email is carolyn.hull@lacity.org. And you can chat me, email me, give me 20, and maybe in the subject line, here's what you do: California for all in the subject line, so that I know. And I will work with you because we're a team and a partnership, and I want to be a resource for you. And really, the FMD team has just been doing a phenomenal job trying to review everything in a timely fashion. But I'm here, and I'm just grateful for you, and I wanted to just say Happy New Year. So,
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year.
Thank you, Carolyn. Okay, so there are any more questions? That wraps up our training. Thank you very much for joining me. If I don't see you folks again. Right.
Oh, don't ever say that, Catherine.
I told them it's like the third time I'm saying goodbye to everybody. Pretty soon they're not going to believe my goodbye.
Thank you. Well, thank you, Catherine, for coming back and helping us all out. We appreciate it.
Yes,
words cannot describe, Catherine, how much we appreciate all that you have done. There's not enough wine in the world.
We should have I was telling them I should have like a third retirement party.
Yes, yeah, you really should. And so again, thank you all. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, FMD. Thank you, Zita, for your leadership and your support of the department. It means so much because we can't do it without you.
Yeah, that's our training, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you. Here again. For FMD, can you guys please stay, FMD folks?
Thank
you. Thank you, Catherine. Thank you all.
Thank you.
See you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you for attending.
Thank you.
Well done, FMD team. So thanks a lot. Glad we were a part of it. Well, you all did an awesome job. Really great. The new FMD team, thank you. All the support we had gotten even previously from the program side. Mayor's office also wants to thank you. And then, of course, the recyclables. We're really happy that you all made yourselves available to support this work. It's obviously really important. And so just want to, again, thank you. All right.
Thank you, Zita. Thank you for your support, Zita.
All right. It's good to see you all. Fred, Edwin, it's good to see you too. Steve, I
thank
see
you,
all of you.
Zita.
All right. Take care.
Thank you, Zita. Thank you very much.
Bye, guys. FMD stay.